Book 2, The Weight of Allies Chapter 5. First Stand. Terra 1 launched without ceremony. Captain Mara Kincaid decided was fitting. Captain Kincaid had not wanted a warship. She had wanted exploration. Survey duty. First contacts. The slow work of mapping what humanity had barely begun to understand. Instead, she stood on the bridge of Earth's first combat vessel, watching Kalari and human systems argue silently across her displays. Drive stable, her helmsman reported. Power routing holding, engineering added. Barely, someone muttered. Kincaid didn't correct them. Barely was enough. At her right stood Terrell Sev, a Kalari systems strategist assigned to Terra 1, older by Kalari standards. We should not be here yet, Terrell Sev said quietly. Your vessel is unfinished. Kincaid didn't look away from the forward display. Everything important ever is. Terrell Sev did not argue, but its posture stiffened. The weapon, Terra 1's primary armament was brutally simple. Magnetically launched tungsten steel rods, each one dense enough to collapse its own internal supports if mishandled, accelerated by a power draw that forced half the ship into standby during firing. One shot, engineering warned. Then recharge. How long? Kincaid asked. Long enough to matter. That was the part no one liked. Contact. The Kalari escort ship broke first from formation. Energy weapons flaring as Hive vessels emerged from the dark. The familiar pattern repeated. Energy struck. Tissue adapted. Momentum favored the Hive. Terrell Sev's voice tightened. They will overwhelm us. Kincaid waited. Fire! Impact. Terra 1 shuddered as the capacitors discharged. The tungsten rod crossed the distance without spectacle. It punched into the leading Hive vessel and did not stop. Internal structures failed before adaptation could begin. The living ship tore itself apart, trying to respond to forces it could not dissipate. Silence followed. Then, alarms. The cost. Weapon offline. Engineering said immediately. Recharge cycle engaged. How long? Kincaid asked. Too long to do that again. The Hive reacted, not in panic. In recalculation. Additional vessels shifted vector. Not retreating. Not charging. Encircling. Terrell Sev turned sharply. Captain, we must withdraw. Kincaid nodded. We already are. Doctrine is born. Terra 1 did not chase. It pulled back. Slowly. Deliberately. The Kalari ship followed. Wounded but intact. The Hive advanced, then stopped. They did not pursue blindly. They watched. They're learning, Terrell Sev said. So are we, Kincaid replied. The retreat was measured. Then re-engage. Strike once. Withdraw before response could form. Not victory. Delay. Aftermath. Back aboard Terra 1, the crew was silent. No cheers. No relief. Only numbers. Power curves. Reload times. Survival margins. Terrell Sev broke the quiet. You have shown them pain, it said. But pain invites focus. Kincaid finally turned. Then we'll make them suffer as much as we can in that time. The Kalari transmitted data immediately. Not praise. Not thanks. Assessment. Earth received the report hours later. One ship destroyed. Weapon effective. Reload time unacceptable. Doctrine recommended. Tactical withdrawal between engagements. Human analysts understood the implication instantly. This would not be a war of sweeping victories. It would be a war of distance. Closing as Terra 1 repositioned deeper into Kalari-controlled space. The captain watched the Hive ships drift. Recalculating. They'll adapt, someone said. Kincaid didn't disagree, but not fast enough. Behind her, 4 unfinished hulls continued to take shape above Earth. Humanity had fired its first shot. Now it would have to learn how to keep surviving the pause between them. Chapter 6. Holding the line. 6 months into the conflict, the war still had no front, only pressure, a slow advance. The Hive did not rush. It adjusted. After each engagement, its formations changed, vectors bending wider, probes extending farther. Movements no longer linear but curved. The Kalari charts marked it clearly. A flanking intelligence was emerging. Hive ships were not charging Kalari space. They were testing it. No victories. Terra 1 had destroyed targets. So had Kalari vessels. But nothing had been reclaimed. Every engagement ended the same way. Strike. Delay. Withdrawal. The Hive adapted slower than energy weapon, but faster than hoped. The Kalari called the campaign containment. Human crews called it attrition. The cost of time. Terra 1 showed the cost first. Microfractures along the forward hull. Rail capacitors stressed past design margins. Power rerouting routines rewritten so often they barely resembled the originals. Captain Mara Kincaid read the damage reports in silence. "We're still alive," engineering said. Kincaid nodded. "That's not the same as holding." The order came reluctantly. Terra 1 would rotate back to Earth for refit and rearm. The ship disengaged under Kalari escort, slipping out of contested space while the Hive continued its slow redistribution. Not pursuit, positioning. Terrell Sev stood beside Kincaid as Earth grew on the display. "We have gained time," the Kalari said. Kincaid exhaled, and spent everything else. The second hull, Earth orbit, told a different story. One of the 4 new ships was nearly complete. It dwarfed Terra 1. Where Terra 1 was endurance and restraint, this vessel was presence. Twin magnetic rails ran along its spine, reinforced for sustained fire. The primary munition was brutally simple. A tungsten penetrator fitted with delayed yield explosive mass. Not elegant, decisive. Its name was painted across the hull in stark block lettering. Atlantic Coalition, an alliance that no longer existed. A reminder of what had preceded unity. Terra 1 did not remain at Earth long. The Hive's patterns shifted again during refit, outer Kalari systems feeling pressure that had not been there before. Not invasion, preparation. The danger was not immediate. That was what made it worse. "They are positioning for bypass," Tel Sev said during the briefing. "If we withdraw too far, they will pass us." "And if we stay?" Kincaid asked. "They will overrun us." The argument. As Terra 1 re-entered contested space, damage reports began to climb not from direct hits, but from sustained strain. The Hive's biological projectiles were probing, not committing. "This is where we disengage," Terrell Sev said, controlled but firm. "We have delayed enough. Survival matters." Kincaid shook her head. "They're not coming at us anymore," she said, pointing at the plot on the star graph. "They're bending around us." Terrell Sev's eyes followed the vector. "That route leads toward inhabited systems," it said quietly. "Exactly," Kincaid replied. "We are holding, not winning." Terra 1 stayed to fight, to buy time. The Hive pressed closer, then paused. Testing range, response, tolerance. Terra 1 absorbed glancing impacts, systems screaming but holding. No decisive blows were exchanged. No heroics, just refusal. Arrival of mass. Then spacetime folded. The Atlantic Coalition emerged from FTL at extreme range, far enough to avoid immediate danger, close enough to matter. Twin rails powered up. No celebration, no warning. The first rod crossed the gap and detonated inside a Hive vessel before adaptive reinforcement could complete. The second followed. The Hive formation broke, not fleeing but dispersing, abandoning the vector. The bypass collapsed. After, Terra 1 withdrew under cover of the larger ship. Damaged, intact, alive. On the bridge, Terrell Sev spoke softly. "You risked your ship." Kincaid nodded. "Yes." "You risked everything, yes." A pause. "And you were correct," Terrell Sev admitted. Kincaid did not answer. She was watching the Hive retreat, recalculating. The line had not moved, but it had held. Behind Terra 1, the Atlantic Coalition took station. Unfinished siblings still under construction back home. Humanity had turned the war. And for the Hive, that was new. Chapter 7. Adaptation and response. The Hive's first successful adaptation was subtle enough that most sensors missed it. The second was not. A tungsten penetrator struck a probe vessel at standard engagement range and failed to achieve full structural collapse. Damage cascaded unevenly. Internal reinforcement formed faster than projected. The living ship survived long enough to transmit. Kalari analysts flagged it immediately. Response latency reduced by 12%, Terrell Sev reported. Energy dispersion improved. Structural memory retained. Kincaid stared at the after-action projection. "How many more hits before they neutralize the weapon?" she asked. Terrell Sev did not hesitate. Silence followed. This was the danger of kinetic purity. Once understood, it became predictable. Explosive subcharges were wrapped around the tungsten cores not to destroy the rod, but to rupture adaptive tissue at multiple stages of penetration. Delayed, staggered, unpredictable. Kalari materials specialists contributed reluctantly adjusting timing profiles to exploit biological hesitation points rather than structural weakness. This is not efficiency, Terelsev said during testing. No, Kincaid agreed, but it will work. Maybe less efficient than Atlantic Coalition purpose-built rods. First use, the Hive provided the opportunity within hours. A medium-mass vessel closed to engagement range, repeating a pattern that had previously worked. Terra 1 fired once. The penetrator struck, then tore itself apart inside the target. Adaptive tissue began reinforcing the initial breach, then lost cohesion as secondary detonations cascaded. Structural signals conflicted. Regeneration stalled. The Hive vessel did not explode. It collapsed. Data silence followed. The Hive withdrew its probes immediately. Assessment. Kalari analysis was concise. Adaptation cycle reset. Countermeasure effectiveness restored. New learning curve initiated. Human command understood the subtext. This bought time. On the bridge, Kincaid watched the Hive formations pull back farther than before. They'll adapt again, her executive officer said. Maybe, Kincaid replied, but not quickly. Behind her, modified rounds slid into magnetic cradles. Humanity had learned its first lesson of the war. Adapt and change, Chapter 8. First planet. The push was deliberate. No sudden advance, no breakthrough charge, just pressure applied consistently across the containment arc, forcing the Hive to yield ground it had never before surrendered. System by system, the Hive repositioned. Not routed, redirected. They're consolidating, Terelsev said as the data resolved, toward a single gravity well. The planet appeared on the main display. Biologically active, heavily integrated. Barren. This is not a forward nest, Terelsev continued. This is origin adjacent, a primary anchor. Kincaid exhaled slowly. So this is where they start counting losses. The advance. Terra 1 and the Atlantic Coalition moved in tandem, joined by two Kalari heavy elements. Modified penetrators were loaded but unfired. Presence mattered more than damage. The Hive contested the approach weakly, too weakly. They're yielding space, navigation reported. Because they don't want us closer, unprepared, Kincaid said. They want us to stop here, establishing distance. The fleet halted at extreme planetary range, close enough to threaten orbit, far enough to deny surface data. Hive vessels formed a loose defensive lattice around the planet, not advancing, not withdrawing. A line, drawn carefully. They are ready to defend, Terelsev said. Kincaid nodded. We need to be ready as well. What this was not invasion. No dropships launched. No bombardment authorized. No claim made. Sensors mapped. Weapons calibrated. Logistics calculated. Preparation. Humanity had reached the first place the Hive considered its own, and stopped. As the planet turned slowly beneath them, alive and waiting, Kincaid addressed the bridge. We don't rush this, she said. We don't prove anything today. No one argued. The Hive held its line. Humanity held position. Between them lay a planet that would decide the next phase of the war, not yet fought, but no longer unreachable,